Hi, I'm Sheryl Paul. For this week's video, I'm going to do a reading from The Conscious Bride, a couple of excerpts. One is connected to this theme that has been very present lately about death and loss. I wrote about in The Conscious Bride the connection between weddings and death, which is a connection that has been largely overlooked. The symbology of it, the mythology of it. It is so essential to welcome in the character of death, the energy of death, of letting go, whatever the transition may be. In The Conscious Bride, of course, the transition is about getting married. So we welcome in the character of death when we acknowledge that we die as a bachelor, we die as a single woman in order to be reborn as a wife or a husband. On her wedding day, especially during her ceremony, while she stands as a vessel of quiet reception, the bride is filled with the spirit of Shekhinah, Sophia, or any other feminine deity. The creation of a sacred and pure space invites these energies out from within the dusty chests into which we often place them. And those who watch are touched by the gods of long ago. But there are other gods that are not invited to this scene of spiritual luminosity. The wedding, with its white flowers and sense of awe, is oddly reminiscent of another rite of passage, the funeral. A truly perfect state is not possible without the presence of its opposite. The wedding, the celebration of life, is incomplete without a proper celebration of its partner, death. It is interesting to note that several classic wedding stories include an element of psychological or metaphorical death. Two such tales, The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz and the Parabola, written in the 15th and 17th centuries respectively, include graphic representations of death at the wedding. In the former, a man is beheaded at the wedding, and in the latter, the wedding bed is a prison in which the young man and maiden die. These stories acknowledge that the wedding is a day of death and rebirth, as both partners die to their current identities before they are reborn. They also portray that only when death is acknowledged can completion, the human equivalent of perfection, exist. But the modern bride, brainwashed to believe that matching teacups and extravagant table arrangements translate to a perfect day, forgets that loss and death figure prominently into this time. Sometimes death only wants a simple acknowledgement of its presence, and when it is ignored, it slithers in through any available opening. In a culture that fears and shuns death, it is not surprising that the links between funerals and weddings have been erased. The link is alluded to in popular culture. The sitcom depicting the best man who jokes to the groom that he's about to die as he dresses on the morning of his wedding. But we will not find any direct links consciously represented on the wedding day. Still, whether or not we honor death's presence, it still exists and does not need to be something we fear. On the contrary, the more we embrace the elements of loss and sacrifice, fear and loneliness, the more fully we can embrace the full powers of our beauty on the wedding day. When woman and man stand at the altar as representations of the heavenly bride and groom, they are calling upon the spiritually perfect state that many believe exists after death. This may be an underlying motivation for the bride's urge toward perfection. Some part of her knows that on her wedding day, for at least a moment, she and her beloved will transcend the earthly realm and experience spiritual perfection. So this comes from the chapter in the book called The Quest for Perfection. And the antidote for perfection is slowing down. So I'm going to read you the last couple pages of that chapter called Dropping into Being. When we encounter a problem or an unusual situation in life, our tendency is to ask, what should I do? During the wedding process, this question plays precisely into the bride's already activated tendency to do. I would like to encourage brides to rephrase the question and instead of asking, what should I do, ask, how can I be? Meaning, how can I be more fully with the emotions and questions that are arising during this time? Here are some suggestions on how to drop more fully into being. Be willing to feel everything. Be willing to feel the fear, sadness, anger, grief, confusion, and loneliness that you may experience during this transition. Drop deeply into the body. The body is a storehouse of emotions and is constantly attempting to communicate its inarguable wisdom with you. The longer we refuse to listen, the more likely it is that the body will demand our attention through sickness or bodily aches and pains. Take the time to ask the body what it wishes to tell you about this time. You may be surprised by the wisdom in the answers. Notice and explore your experience as intimately as possible. Sometimes when we are feeling stuck, a transformation occurs when we are willing to look directly into the core of the situation and report back what we find. This is the concept behind the healing power of art. When we see ourselves with the artist's eyes, we are truly seeing the depth, range, color, sounds, images, metaphors, music, and gestures of our experience. When a thing is fully seen, it usually transforms. Talk with people who understand transition and are not afraid to talk about the dark sides of life. They may be difficult to find. Many people have not explored their own inner terrain, so consequently they're afraid to listen to others. Common phrases that may stem from this stance are, "Oh, don't worry, it will pass soon," or "Look on the bright side," or "Can't you focus on the positive fact that you're getting married?" People can concoct endless ways to attempt to talk you out of feeling what you're feeling. Don't let them. Remind yourself that you are in the midst of a transformational experience, that everything you are going through is as a normal and necessary part of this transformation, and that through this rite of passage, you are being given the opportunity to redefine who you are and who you are becoming. Keep commending yourself for having the courage to descend into your own underworld and simply be with what you find. Keep noticing the tendency to want to do something when the emotions become uncomfortable. And it will be uncomfortable. When a creature loses its skin, it feels itchy and antsy for a period of time. You are this creature in the midst of losing your skin.